Jesus Christ. I've been looking forward to seeing this debate for quite some time. I can only conclude that William Lane Craig just completely owned Richard Carrier.
Okay. Right.
Welcome to Reasonable Faith, Conversations with William Lane Craig. I'm Kevin Harris, and we hope you'll find the topics we discuss enriching and enlightening concerning the big questions of life. Dr. William Lane Craig is a noted philosopher and theologian known for his work on the existence of God, philosophy of time, and the resurrection of Jesus. And we invite you to discover the wealth of resources at reasonablefaith.org. There you'll find Dr. Craig's famous debates with leading atheists, articles, books, podcast, audio from Dr. Craig's Defenders class, and a question and answer section featuring amazing questions people send us and answers from Dr. Craig. That's reasonablefaith.org. reasonablefaith.org. Dr. Craig, let's discuss a debate that generated a lot of buzz. And I think that the reason this debate generated so much talk is because many people have been anticipating an exchange between you and an atheist named Richard Carrier. This was a debate on the resurrection. A little background on Richard, we'll give that here in just a moment. But Bill, I want to ask you, why do you think there was a lot of talk about this particular debate? It was rather anticipated.
It really was. There was a lot of excitement going into the debate. And I think it's because of Richard's prominence in the whole internet infidel network. And for many people, I think he was the sort of great white hope which was going to come along and really bring down the case for the resurrection of Jesus, who was going to defeat it soundly and show its fallacies. So a lot of people were really pinning their hopes, I think, on Richard Carrier.
The internet infidels, also known as the secular web, one of the first secular, atheist, naturalistic websites, and still very large. At one point, I think it was number one as far as visitors there and interaction. And they try to do a good job as far as presenting an atheistic or naturalistic point of view.
Yes.
A lot of material about you there. They interact with it and so on. So I'll just concur with you. There was a lot of talk about this debate because of Richard Carrier, and he has a lot of fans. And he calls them his fans.
Yes, I find that rather odd, but you're quite right. It's Richard Carrier fans that I find strange. I mean, I don't think, for example, that I have fans. I have students, but not fans. And so I find that rather odd.
And whether he means it in a facetious way or he's actually thanking his fans, I don't know. But he does have a following, and from what I've been able to see, a rather young following. Now, that's why I thought one of the reasons I thought that this debate was going to be important.
I felt that the debate went very well from the Christian point of view. I don't think that Richard came to grips with any of the four facts that I presented on behalf of the resurrection. He tried to argue in terms of broad generalities rather than grappling with the specifics, not only with those specific four facts, but with the supporting lines of evidence in support of each of these facts. And then with regard to naturalistic explanations, again, it would be very broad brushstrokes, like that the disciples were prone to hallucinations, and therefore Paul was schizophrenic and Mary was a psychotic, and this explains everything. There was no detailed defense of these naturalistic explanations in terms of the criteria that I was using to assess them, such as explanatory scope, explanatory power, plausibility, degree of ad hocness, and so forth. So I felt there was a failure on his part to come to grips with specifics in an effective way. And so I'm hoping that as a result of this debate, that many people who had great confidence in Richard Carrier's attacks will think again and say, wait a minute, maybe the evidence for this event is much more powerful than I thought, and maybe there's a reason why Richard Carrier finds himself amidst that minority of scholars who deny these facts.
I might mention as well is that Richard Carrier was a contributor to a book called The Empty Tomb.
Yes.
And it was supposed to be the secular answer to all the evidence for the resurrection. What puzzles me is that Richard Carrier has studied you for a long time and written on you for a long time. He was very familiar with your 4 points, yet he just didn't seem to address them.
Yes, this is what shocked me as well, Kevin. I was anticipating that since my material has been out there for years, that when Richard Carrier got up to speak in his opening address, there would be a point-for-point parrying of the evidence that I laid out for my case. And instead, there were just generalities about the Gospels being myths, rather than coming to grips with the 4 facts that I would present. In fact, the fact of the burial of Jesus by Joseph of Arimathea was never even touched in the debate by Richard, even though that was the first of my 4 facts that needed to be explained, and the first of my lines of evidence in favor of the empty tomb, that if the burial account is accurate, then the site of Jesus' grave was known in Jerusalem to both Jew and Christian alike, and it would be impossible for a movement founded on the belief in the resurrection of the dead man to arise and flourish in a city where the location of his body was public knowledge. And yet Richard never engaged at all with the burial account, and only later in the debate did he begin to engage with the empty tomb and the origin of the Christian faith and so forth.